welcome back to another exciting episode of Full Circle. I'm your host, as always, Odell Harmon Jr. Please call me Odell Harmon Jr.
And I'm the other host, Jared Fradette. You can find me at Toondalo. We have a great episode for you today. We'll be continuing our spooky theme. We'll be talking about, of course, the PlayStation 5. That's right. It's officially coming. When, where, how, whom.
What will it be called?
Whomstove.
It's called the PS5. Yeah. They're keeping it simple for us. We'll be keeping our spooky segment going on with spooky geek jargon. And that's the last time I'm going to say spooky that way because that is exhausting.
Welcome to the world of spooky.
I like that.
Thank you. And first and foremost, at the top of the hour, the news you've probably heard all throughout the week is, of course, the controversial affair with Blizzard. So, what's happening there?
So, if you didn't know, recently
Hong Kong is protesting. I guess we should.
Oh yeah,
we should probably set this up, right?
Okay. All right, yeah. I'll let you take care of that.
Hong Kong, a former colony of England, had certain rights because they were once owned by England, despite being inside of China.
Strange how that works still to me.
Right, and so kind of like our deal with Panama, the canal, not Florida. So, upon returning it to China, they retained certain rights and liberties.
Yes, if you didn't know, China is a communist country.
70 years this past couple weeks.
Oh, yeah, they did make 70 years.
Happy birthday, Communist China.
Yeah, but Hong Kong, being under Britain rule, ran more like a democracy, or a modern Western democracy. They were still very much Chinese, but they didn't have to follow communist China's law, essentially.
Right. So there was going to be a new law passed from China that would resubjugate the citizens of Hong Kong back to the rest of China.
In layman's terms, all that freedom and what we consider,
freedoms,
liberties of the Western
happiness.
Of Western society would now be taken away, and they would have to fall in line, so to speak, with the rest of the Chinese territory.
Bop. Right out the door. There they went.
And they've been living like this for, a couple of decades at this point.
Right. So, because of this, lots of people in Hong Kong, as well as around the world, were protesting. Which brings us to today's topic, protesting.
So, during the Blizzard... Okay, I would say Hearthstone, but it's Hearthstone. Hearth.
Like a fireplace hearth.
Okay, Hearthstone. The card game. The digital card game that everyone loves.
You mean Artifact?
Oh!
Burn in your hearth.
Okay, so during the championship match, a player won of... Correct. I may not be pronouncing this right, but it's... Just you say it, Jared.
Blitzchung.
Blitzchung is his gamer tag, but his name is Net Wei Chung. Wei Chung?
I believe it would be Wei in this instance.
Net Wei Chung. He won, and he took the moment to spotlight, which, kudos to him for risking his personal safety, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
He wore a mask, which, according to the new law that they formed law, because people, were wearing masks to protect their identities from facial recognition and stuff like that.
We should do a new segment next week, because I've also seen people using projectors to project an alternate face onto their face.
Oh, that's dope.
Technology.
Yeah. So he wore a mask, which they've outlawed in Hong Kong, as a way of protest. And he said, free Hong Kong, something of that nature, with his solidarity of that, he wants his country, territory, land to be free and his people, in which case the broadcast was, cut off at some point. And then, according to Blizzard and their regulations, they withheld his $10,000 winnings of the tournament and banned him from professional Hearthstone
tournaments for a year. Let's interject here. So technically, Blizzard is within their rights to do this. This is not saying they are correct. This is not right legality.
From a legal, anything that the company deems as unfit,
out the door, too political, and this stands for a lot, pretty much ubiquitously across any company, at least in America.
But is at their discretion? It uses very loose verbiage to basically say, if we feel it is, then we can say it is.
Right. Because, yeah.
And so from a legal standpoint, they could, but as you like to say, Jared, your favorite saying, morality is different from legality. And so people were upset. Well, and if you're thinking like, well, they were legally right, but there's things like racist, sexist,
Right, like
bigotry,
all
toxicity.
All the other things that go on during their games, during their servers,
that people complain
online
about
play.
And, not only Blizz, but other companies, they kind of take a step back and like, whoa, we can't police that. We can't do anything about that.
Right.
But when, a communist...
Twitter, we can't get rid of the white supremacists. That would get rid of too many politicians. We're just staring at the camera now. We're just going to judge you here for a second. Okay.
Before we go down that rabbit hole, people were saying there's other things that you could help police do better that you turned a blind eye to. And
to selectively zero in and drill home to this one person for this one thing.
And so so you're thinking from a money standpoint, approximately 12% of Blizzard's income comes from China, but that's saying the Asian market, which yes, China's a big part of that. So that 12% could be 10, it could be 9, it could be 8, it could be 11. But approximately, let's just say it's the whole 12, comes from China. So, and I don't know what other business dealings they might have, but this was a indication of you're messing with our money and our business.
Despite Blizzard's official quote stance here, I want to be clear, our relationship in China had no influence on our decision, which makes it even more ridiculous.
Because it completely did.
Right, it's like, so you just punish this player for laughs and giggles.
Yeah, and this statement has been recently released. So since the boycott, which we're about to get into, they have gave Chung his $10,000 winning and turned his ban from 1 year to 6 months. But why did they do it, Jared? How did we get to this point?
Boycotting.
But we're not talking about your run of the mill bring back the National Dex boycott Pokemon. We're talking about a good old fashioned grassroots boycott. Everything from casters quitting.
Journalists,
the community, and even American politicians. Marco Rubio actually condemned them. Yes, I know. Before
I'm judging you.
Yes, I just want to throw that fun fact in you.
Okay.
He's in Florida, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. He condemned Blizzard for such an action.
Okay.
I'll let you. While Jared's seminary, and so the boy
and internal Blizzard employees. Okay.
Yeah.
Which I think is a pretty big one.
Yeah. I think my favorite thing in our protest. Okay. So it says something about their motto is all voices heard around the world, and they went and covered up the all voices thing and like the world on their little logo. So anyway, so people deleted their Battle.net account, unsubscribed to their World of Warcraft account. Collegiate professional Hearthstone players did not play their matches and just held up a sign, Free Hong Kong, which got cut off at some point. Internal employees, the press, politicians, and people legit not playing their games. The Reddit had a picture of Blizzard's logo on the Hong Kong flag, and it became the most upvoted thing in Reddit's history in like the shortest amount of time. Crazy. I don't know if the exact numbers is so. And then Blizzard shut down the it was either the Blizzard Reddit or the Hearthstone Reddit. I think it's just the Blizzard Reddit. They made it private, so you couldn't comment and stuff. Mm-hmm. And after all the backlash, they came it came back on. It's just a whole bunch of memes, anti-Blizzard memes.
Uh-huh.
And so and another thing, a lot of people uninstalled or try to get their money back from pre-purchasing Overwatch on the Switch. So yeah, literally hitting their pocketbooks, people unsubscribing to the games, trying to literally get their money back from a game they pre-bought. Yeah, just across the board.
Right, it's like, hey, if you hate it losing 12%, try hating losing 88%.
Yeah, so this is like grassroots to the fullest effect boycott. So like your name, your image, your pocketbooks from every angle. So of course they had to respond there. Previous response up until recently was just very much like, we will talk about this internally. We will deal with it until, the problem got so much worse that they didn't have a choice. I'm not sure their response now that, they were just following policy, but at least I'm happy that Chung got his winnings back. He even said himself that he was prepared to have this response. He was prepared that he would receive punishment in some type of ban or losing the winnings. And so more respect to him at all for taking that stance, from my personal opinion.
And I also remember reading that when asked, like, after the ban is finished, will he come back to professional playing, at least for Hearthstone? And I think he said no. To be fair, I'd be pretty soured on this whole, like, even if you expect it to occur, for it to still occur is a pretty terrible souring moment.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing, what people said, yes, legally they were within their right, and from a non-moral, just black and white, I am a judicial robot, they weren't at fault. But it was also with the swiftness they dealt with this. They dealt with it immediately. There was no like hearing, there was no process. It was like it happened, and I don't know if it was the literal next day, but yeah, punishment had been dealt and had been dealt hard. And and also this almost people take as a sign of like, oh well, look, it's like if you don't, if you got something to say about something that we don't align with, this could happen to you.
Ugh, that's pretty scary. You know what else is pretty scary? Spooky creatures from Geek Fantasy.
Oh, welcome to the world of spooky. I don't want to do it.
Right. So we're kind of doing a return to form for Geek Jargon. We're going to be doing more deep cuts about things from the geekdom, things you probably definitely haven't heard before. If you did, you're never quite sure what they meant. So this time, to align with Halloween, we're doing fantasy creatures that are spooky.
Yeah, and I promise you, from either video games, cartoons, anime, you've probably heard of some of these before, probably quite often.
Right. So our first creature off the top of the list here are wraiths.
Are we talking about that tank from Halo? No. Are we talking about the spooky woman with powers from Apex? No.
Are we talking about the alien from Stargate Atlantis? No. we are talking about the ghost, but not a ghost, specter of someone who comes before or shortly after the death of things.
So, am I thinking of
a Grim Reaper? Also, no.
What about? Oh crap! What about A Christmas Carol?
No, those would definitely be like specters. Specifically, because Ebenezer's like, "What? Why have you come to me this night, Spectre?"
Oh, there we go.
Right. So that one is pretty straightforward. It is a ghost or
ghost-like image.
It's a ghost-like thing. I've also read lore that they're almost like out of body. Like if someone is dying, they will be, but they are not quite dead.
So what basically, this definition is literally kind of like a ghost, but not.
Right.
Which
there is technically a distinction. Technically.
So if you're a wraith, can you do ghost things?
Yes.
Yes. Are you a ghost? No.
I like to think of ghosts as longer lasting. They're less mercurial, less kind of in the void. Like ghosts are more permanent than wraiths. That's how we're gonna rate this.
Wraith is like an in between state. Like I am.
Oh, duh! Lord of the Rings, ring wraiths, right? They're not quite dead. They're not quite alive. They exist for the one purpose.
Huh, there we go. I like that. Not quite alive, not quite dead. Got a purpose, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
There we go. A wraith.
Our next creature, not terribly spooky, but pretty popular, and could be spooky if you didn't know what they were. The Tanuki.
And no, we're not talking about the suit from Mario that turns you into a raccoon and then a statue.
We kind of are.
What other Tanukis do you know of?
So, mostly actual, just literal Tanukis. There's these. Oh
yeah. Just for those who know, Tanukis are actually a real animal.
Right. So Tanukis are Japanese raccoon dogs. They look adorable and fat.
Yeah, they look like a raccoon that you want to hug.
Right. I don't know. I kind of want to just hug normal raccoons.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, so...
Their little cotton candy dissolving.
Little tiny hands. Okay, but more than the actual literal animal, the Tanuki, they have mythological powers to them. Mostly that they are able to shapeshift and cause mischief.
And disappear, right? They can turn invisible?
I think that'd be kind of like part of shapeshifting. The most recent Tanuki I've seen in pop culture is I forget her name. No, wait, it's Tanya Keys from Adventures of Mau Mau.
Oh, she's a Tanuki?
Yeah, that's the pun on her name. Tanya Key, Tanuki.
Oh.
And she uses little leaves to shapeshift herself as well as other things.
Ah. Well, there we go.
Right? Pretty fun, I think.
Right.
The next is a personal favorite of mine, the Jabberwock.
And no, we're not talking about the amazing dance crew, the Jabberwockies.
So I like to put huge emphasis and nail in like a chip on my shoulder sort of thing here. The creature is called a Jabberwock. The poem is called Jabberwocky. It's Lewis's Carroll invention for the paper at Oxford, meaning talk all about it. Anywho.
Also, again, I just want to clarify, it's not the dance crew.
It's not the Dex crew, right? It's just... But again, all of that comes from this. So the Jabberwock is a fierce and terrible creature and featured in the second Alice in Wonderland book, Through the Looking Glass. That's right, there are 2 books, people. And it's probably best explained by the poem, which I will now read.
All right.
'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the baragoves, and the momraths outgrabe. Beware the jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jubjub bird, and shun the frumerous bandersnatch. He took his vorpal blade in hand, long time the maxome foe he sought. Need glasses. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in elfish thought he stood, the jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the togly woods, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he came galumping. And hast thou slain the jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjestay, cow-hoo, cow-hey, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the baragoves, and the momraths outgrabe.
For such a vicious creature, he was dealt with swiftly.
Well, that is the power of the vorpal blade. So also, I'm just going to geek out here. Also of note here are other words that are now in common fantasy and things that that Lewis Carroll invented. The vorpal blade, as we mentioned, it is a epic blade that is found throughout every other, it's now in video games. It is a powerful blade. He invented that. And it comes straight from this poem, as well as chortling to kind of chuckle, snort. He invented that as well, as many of the other words. So you see, it's an epic creature. It's kind of a snake dragon venom thing.
To me, it looks like a dragon. Tail, body, and wings and claws look dragon. Then we get this
naked mole rat face.
There we go. Yeah, a naked mole rat face with a elongated snake neck.
Yes,
is my best description I can give you. But we live in the internet. You can just look it up.
And we'll have pictures here throughout the poem.
Yay, the Jabberwock from the poem "The Jabberwocky."
So the next, probably even more terrifying than the Jabberwock, is the Great Leviathan.
Which is not the same as the Kraken, which in my mind, Kraken and Leviathan are the same thing. Not both sea creatures, though.
Right.
But Kraken is octopusy and Leviathan is just, I don't know.
Sea serpenty.
There we go.
Well, it's kind of vaguely described. In some instances, it appears as a great serpent. In other circumstances, it appears as a great whale. But either way, it is an incredibly large titan of a sea-dwelling monster. This actually comes to us from Judaism and the Bible. So, it's out there, people. You think you're safe sleeping in the middle of Kansas? Oh no. It's going to surf right up on land and eat you.
Pretty much.
Right. And it's pretty much a beast coming at us from the end of times. Almost like Finra, right? The great wolf that will eat Odin at the end of the world.
Oh, yeah. I thought that ate the moon.
It eats Odin's eye, which is also Odin. It's one of those, symbolism gets kind of blurry.
But yeah, there are two giant wolves, and then once they catch Odin, they eat him, and that's the end of time, right? Something like
that is Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jazz hands.
Let's see. And so finally, to end out and wrap up this segment, we have the Dullahan.
What is the Dullahan, Jared?
Simply put, the Headless Horseman. That's right. We have heard about it, of course, from Sleepy Hollow, but also from the popular anime, Right, Celti.
And then it's sequel to times 2. So does it mean I say it twice?
Right, Celti. In her name, it comes to us from Irish and Celtic mythology. Celti. Oh. Right, they are creatures that are able to take off their heads to intimidate whomever they're hunting down.
Besides being headless, do they really have any other power?
They are a type of fae. They are the fae folk. So
that's fairy, right?
Shh, we don't talk. We don't name them, or we summon them.
Oh, crap.
Don't eat of their food, and don't answer their questions.
Okay.
We've covered this.
You did. Freaking fae people, I'm on to you.
The forest folk.
Why are they so evil?
They're more just chaotically mischievous and self-serving.
Why are they so assholey though?
That's a question for the ages, Odell.
Well, it is no longer a question for the ages.
What?
What is the PS5 going to be called? And when is it coming out? We have those answers approximately.
It's going to be called the PS5. Obviously, they couldn't call it the PSV, because that would just be confused for the Vita. Remember that when that was a thing?
So I wonder if they're gonna play off like the S5 like mirror image thing going on.
Maybe. I mean, I'm trying to see what that'd look like. PS. No, wait, I made that a 2. Damn it.
Yeah, you did make that.
Well, I don't know.
Anyway, so the PS5, I say release date, but it's release window. I'm not gonna like shortchange you here like the other people.
Mm-hmm.
They said holiday 2020. I'm not gonna be snorking and be like, what holiday? It's November or December.
Leif Erikson Day.
It's gonna fall between the things. If I draw a giant circle that says Thanksgiving area and Christmas area, it would either be in one of those circles or in like the what do you call the area that crosses between the.
You mean in the Venn diagram?
Yeah, what's that area called?
The overlap.
Does it have an actual name?
I don't think so.
Okay, whatever. It would be in the overlap of the Venn diagram. But yeah.
If I were to shoot from the hip, I'd say immediately in early November, because games always try and hit the Black Friday crowds.
Yeah. So that would make sense. Its design looks cool to me. Okay, it looks
like a spaceship.
it looks future-y. I'll give it that. It definitely looks like a future game console.
Right.
I don't know if it's designed that way for like practical purposes for what it does, but yeah, so the PlayStation 5 is coming out. It's gonna have all the bells and whistles.
Do you have some of the specs for us?
Oh yeah, I'm getting there.
I see the words 8K around. Which again, I have a personal, not a vendetta, but I'm like, how much resolution are we going to cram into things before it surpasses the human biology?
I don't know. So it'll support 8K. Its default will be 4K. It will be backwards compatible with PS4 games. So yay. We don't know if that's all PS4 games or some PS4 games. I mean, who really knows at this point?
Yeah, everything's on a digital library somewhere.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. It'll have ray tracing support, SSD. Let's see. Okay, here we go. The PS5 includes a disk drive for physical games and 4K Blu-rays. PS5 disc will have a capacity of 100 gigabytes.
That doesn't sound like a lot, given that a lot of games these days are coming out the gate at like 20 gigs.
All right, so here's a kicker. Game installation is mandatory, but the console will allow you to just install a multiplayer campaign, for example, or install the entire game and delete the single-player portion once you're done.
But also, I find it weird that they're really promoting deleting and erasing, because again, that's not best to do on a solid-state drive.
I don't know. There's ray tracing acceleration in the GPU hardware, though.
Okay, sure.
I think
I'll admit I'm talking above my pay grade.
We're just giving you the facts, people. Just giving you the facts. Oh, so the DualShock 5, that is its official name. Keeping it simple, folks. I will applaud them because people are calling the Xbox next Xbox One is going to be called the Xbox 2.
Sure.
Because, we're on Xbox One, and I'm just like...
It should be Xbox One over 37. I don't know. It felt like Kingdom Heartsy, sort of just like...
It really did. So the DualShock 5 will have... They'll have different... What do you call the buttons at the top?
Triggers?
Yeah, they'll have different triggers. They'll be more sensitive and that you can adjust. It will be slightly heavier than the DualShock 4, which I guess that might be a thing for some people. And it will have the, I forgot the name, but the vibrations that I'll call them HD vibrations. They didn't call them that, but like in the Switch.
The Rumble Pack.
The very, so let's say if you're digging a hole, if you're driving a car, or if you're doing some other action, you would tell by...
responsive rumble?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what it's called.
Yeah, but I think it's cool. Like, the Switch has yet to utilize it more past gimmick area, but I mean, it works. It, when it makes you play a mini game or something that has, you're just like, oh, this is.
That's primarily where I use the dynamic rumble. I'm just gonna keep calling it various things, right? Where it's like, okay, where is the moon here in Mario Sunshine? Not Mario Odyssey. Rumble. There it is.
Oh, haptic feedback. There we go.
Right, like what's in your phones, because you can set it to how intense you want it to be.
Yeah.
Do you just want to barely feel it, or do you want like your neighbors to hear the table vibrating?
Yeah. So we got a whole bunch of just tech jargon. Basically, it's gonna be powerful. It should run well. It's gonna support 8K, but basically, if we're there, yeah. But it'll have full 4K support. You'll be able to watch Blu-rays and those ultra 4K DVDs.
You know what? So I mean, this is all well and good, and I like that we're getting bigger. And means at some point, I just kind of have to shrug and say, "What's the point, though?" What I would like to see the next gen of consoles coming out with is the ability to actually just export my gameplay. I mean, that's or for them to just sell a more direct way of getting it off rather than having to okay, so you got to hook this up to a USB, to a converter to my computer, to record it on a separate monitor, to feed back, to loop it back together, and then still edit it in Premiere.
We might get there because, the PS4, there's some, you can stream for your PS4 without any extra equipment besides the PS4.
Okay.
You can do it, and I mean, granted, it's not as good as, getting, my Elgato and then making... So the setup is fairly simple, but...
But again, the issue with streaming is, I don't know, streaming itself is not particularly interesting.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I'm saying that it's easy enough now, so I wouldn't be surprised if what you're saying is all I need my PS5 and that's it. Maybe a camera to see me, and I can literally maybe do everything I can do without a PC. I would only need a PC if I just wanted to get a little tidbit fancier here, brush it up. But I wouldn't be surprised if we got that. Spec wise, all I'm hearing is it's gonna be more powerful, games will look awesome. And there was that rumor that, none of this says this, but they're getting rid of load times entirely, which I don't think will be a huge leap. Not that load times now ever get to a point where I'm just
but less waiting is always good.
Yeah, so...
do we have, in our last few minutes here, do we have any games announced? Any exclusive games? Or?
No, so Blue Point, they made the HD remasters of Metal Gear and Shadow of the Colossus, which everyone should play if you have a PS4. They have announced they're going to be making a PS5 exclusive that they're working on. It's going to be their biggest project ever. So people don't know if that's a new IP or they're going to be remaking Dark Souls or some other fan favorite game that people have always wanted.
Okay.
So other than that, but people expect, The Last of Us Part 2 will probably get a remastered on PS5, similar how I did on the PS4.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe Death Stranding, the last greatest titles for the PS4 will probably get remade for the PS5, which would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna get Last of Us Part 2 in February, and if they remaster in PS5, I'll probably get it again, and they'll be this is how I'm gonna replay it. But yeah, so no official titles announced yet.
Okay.
Hush hush, but it's a thing. Holiday 2020. Don't fool yourself. That's November, December.
Maybe they mean New Year's Day.
That would be wild if they did, though. Could you imagine? I would commit. I would be whoa.
Okay.
Whoa.
That'd be a pretty great giveaway on their part.
Here we are in the future.
Oh.
And this bride.
I was trying to set you up to segue into.
I know, but it was there, and okay. I couldn't. I had to. Take it away, Jared.
Okay, so if you've been following Odell on Twitter like you should be, or the podcast on Twitter like you should be, or me on Twitter like you should be, you'd know that later today we'll be giving away the SNES here. Finally, Odell hit 1,000 followers.
Yay!
So we will be drawing for this at 8 p.m. We'll record it live. It'll probably just be a random number generator. So if you get mysterious numbers on your comments, that means we know you commented. So in the link below, comment and follow us in order to enter.
Yes, and to officially enter, besides following me and the podcast, and just follow Jared too. You don't have to, but you should. You have to leave a comment on the original post, which just go to Twitter, you'll find it.
Not a thread, not like your friend commented and you commented on them, like on the post.
Yes, and also, don't just like it or retweet it. That is not, I mean, I appreciate
Definitely
it. Thank
do
you.
that, but
yeah, only comments on the post.
Right. So that being said, for Full Circle Podcast, I am Fradette. You can find me at Toon Velo.
And I'm Odo Harmon Jr. You can find me at Odo Harmon Jr. Thank you for watching and or listening, and have a great week, everybody.